Pat McAfee is quite possibly the most polarizing and sometimes misunderstood sports entertainer in the business today. As a podcaster, sports analyst, wrestler, philanthropist, and most importantly, one of the greatest punters of all time, Pat McAfee's legs and his mouth are worth millions of dollars. Oh, and did I mention that he was a Guinness World Record holder? That's right, Pat McAfee certainly has done everything. He used to be so good at kicking footballs that the NFL had no choice but to drug test him almost every week because he's a freak of nature. I mean, look, have you seen him when he wears those black tank top shirts on his ESPN podcast earrings? He's a world-class athlete, no doubt about it. But that's just a tiny part of Pat McAfee's unbelievable story. He punted his way out of the margins and into the hearts of sports pop culture. Did you know that he bought an entire wrestling ring for himself just for fun? That's right, a wrestling ring. This, my friends, is the tale of his rise. A journey that starts not with football, but with illegal poker chips? You're gonna have to stick around and watch this video to hear about that story and other wild stories with other NFL players like with Aaron Rodgers. Born in 1987 in Plum, a suburb of Pittsburgh, a young Pat wasn't exactly carved from sports marble. Yet, in high school, he just had a knack for being the guy. I don't know if his high school has enough players to pick out, but Pat McAfee became a varsity player in 3 different sports: soccer, volleyball, and football. And football wasn't exactly Pat McAfee's favorite sport. He just loved the idea that he could also kick balls in football, as he did in soccer. He wasn't even really sure what sport he really wanted to pursue, but fate had other plans. A sophomore punt, pass, and kick championship trophy changed everything, as Pat was suddenly staring down the field of collegiate possibilities. A young Pat McAfee developed a love for kicking things, other than his brother's butt and his toys every now and then. His journey to becoming an NFL punter was, as he often puts it, straight out of a comedy script. Standing at 6'1", Pat McAfee's journey from Plum High School to West Virginia University wasn't the most conventional football story. In a sport dominated by larger-than-life linemen and swift wide receivers, McAfee's decision to specialize in punting raised more than a few eyebrows. Well, the day that made Pat McAfee sure of his decision that he's going to kick footballs for a living started not in the field, but in the casino with illegal poker chips. Pat borrowed $100 from a friend, lied to his parents, went straight to the poker club, and bet on his future. Not only was Pat really good at punting footballs, he sure was great with poker, as he turned his $100 into $1,400 and used it to buy a plane ticket to Miami for a national punt, pass, and kick competition, loaded with collegiate scouts and coaches. I don't know about you, but this definitely sounds like that blackjack scene from Rain Man or The Hangover. I can totally see ESPN doing a 30 for 30 or some made-for-TV biopic about Pat McAfee's rise to stardom. I would definitely watch that. Anyways, back to the story. So just how did Pat McAfee do in that national punt, pass, or kick tourney in Miami? Well, he smashed the competition. McAfee made 9 consecutive field goals, starting at 25 yards and moving 5 yards out each time. With his performance, West Virginia coach Tony Gibson approached Pat McAfee and offered him a scholarship to kick for the Mountaineers. The thought of getting a free education at a top-tier university just for kicking footballs was too much to decline. So Pat committed to the West Virginia Mountaineers as their place kicker, and Pat was so good that he was their #1 kicker as a freshman. McAfee's most memorable moment came as a freshman against the Louisville Cardinals, when he reached an impressively successful onside kick that gave running back Steve Slayton the opportunity to tie the game and eventually win in triple overtime 46-44. Pat had an impressive freshman run and overcame the so-called sophomore slump as well, as he made 17 of 22 field goals and made all 62 extra point attempts. By the time his junior and senior seasons rolled around, McAfee was a campus legend. He was one of the best special teams players in the country. Pat was a finalist for the Ray Guy Award. He also became the West Virginia Mountaineers' all-time leading scorer with 384 career points. McAfee finished his college career going 210 of 212 on PATs and booting a 73.4% of his field goals, 58 of 79. He logged 126 punts for 5,512 yards and a solid average of 43.7 yards. With these college stats, McAfee should have been a lock to get an invite to the NFL Combine, right? Well, no. The NFL snubbed McAfee for the Combine, and it forced him to work out with the Cowboys, Patriots, and Colts privately. McAfee proved everyone wrong as he got selected by the Colts in the 7th round, which marked the start of Pat's legendary career. And Well, he just lied a little bit to get drafted, but that's all right. Oh, you haven't heard the story yet about how he lied to get drafted? Well, Pat was called by Colts president Bill Polian, asking him if he knew how to hold. Well, Pat, who just kicked field goals and extra points in his entire career, had no idea how to hold. But just to get that spot, he said yes. You can just learn that while in the league, right? So there it is, done. He got drafted by the Colts to be a punter, not a place kicker. Finally, realizing his NFL dream, he entered a world where punters were often overshadowed by their more glamorous teammates. But McAfee wasn't just any punter. He was a walking, talking highlight reel waiting to happen. And what better way to kick off your career than by stomping the league and heading to the Super Bowl as the starting punter and kickoff specialist? As the years went by, McAfee continued to shape his game. It's often said that special teams are just third in football, behind the offense and the defense. But special teams are just as important in most football enthusiasts' eyes. A punt inside the 20-yard line could prove disastrous to the opposing team, improving your field position while killing the other team's momentum and potentially slowing their game down. And McAfee dedicated his entire career to this. He wanted to be the best punter this league has ever seen. What made McAfee not just your ordinary punter on the field was his willingness to hit kickoff and punt returners and usually win the battle. He's not like a lot of the NFL kickers today who either run the opposite way, fall down, or are too slow to get to the kick returner. McAfee knew he was a football player, and he seemed to make it his mission to break the stigma that not every specialist was afraid of contact. Remember that one play? That one play catapulted McAfee into stardom. It was against the Broncos. After a McAfee punt, it seemed like the wide receiver, Trendon Holiday, was wide open and came blazing down the sideline. But then, out of nowhere, McAfee ran right through him like he was nothing. McAfee's going to be a legend among kickers everywhere. In the following years, Pat continued to be great. But with greatness came controversies, that's for sure. Remember when he got mixed up with the law when police caught him drunk inside his car, and his hilarious exchange with the law enforcer? Yeah, McAfee got fined and suspended right after that. But Pat himself said that this was actually a turning point in his life. He got straight, fixed his life, limited the partying, and focused on his career. And, well, I think he might have focused too well, because right after that, he was performing like a monster. He went to the Pro Bowl as an All-Pro punter in 2014, became AFC Special Teams Player of the Month, and to top it off, he recovered his own onside kick. He was so dominating with his kicks that the NFL is wondering if he was doping with all of these performances. The league would request that he do random drug tests. Now that's it. You know you're doing well if they think the kicker is juicing. Just watch his highlight reel. Punting the ball to the opponent's 1-yard line, a ballsy fake punt pass, a bunch of tackles, and a whole lot of personality on the field. However, just months after he was awarded his second Pro Bowl in 2016, Pat McAfee shocked the entire world as he announced his retirement from the NFL. 3 knee operations in just 4 years played a significant factor in his decision, and it robbed us of years of still seeing Pat McAfee's excellence on the field. And while it may have robbed us of more entertaining moments on the football field, it sure as hell hasn't disappointed with the entertainment off the field. Since retiring from the NFL, Pat McAfee has arguably found a job much more enjoyable than his previous one, a job to keep talking. Pat loves to talk. He even started his own podcast, The Pat McAfee Show, to always give us a piece of his mind. Pat also never ceases to remind us about his legendary career, as he's been everywhere, being a sports analyst for Barstool Sports, Fox Sports, and ESPN. Oh, and did I mention that he decided to become a wrestler and commentator? Yeah, he had 3 surgeries on his knees and he decided to become a wrestler. He was just doing side quests now. He even got a solo match at WWE's grandest show, WrestleMania. Not once, but twice. And since Aaron Rodgers is no longer welcome on the Pat McAfee Show, do you know what would be an awesome match for the next WrestleMania? Pat McAfee acting as a guest referee in a match between Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Kimmel. And instead of a steel cage, maybe they just have a battle of wits. Pat McAfee is just a wild man. He even didn't know what to do with all of the money he's made, like buying an entire wrestling ring for him to train in, and getting a vehicle that was supposed to work both in water and land. But yeah, as soon as he tried it in the water, it sank right away. Pat McAfee's journey to become one of the greatest punters this league has ever seen, to becoming a sports analyst and commentator, and to becoming a wrestler was just wild. And it's exciting to see what the future has in store for Pat. But I do know one thing, I'll be tuning into anything he does. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.